Did you get the change in the work assignment you were trying to get?
No. Well, it's just, I decided to stay where I am. It just, I just want to stay.
How would you know if an inmate like this was under the influence of drugs? Every experienced correctional officer knows that drugs do get into jails and prisons. They come in through shipping, through the mail, they come in through visiting, they're thrown over the fence, and unfortunately, sometimes they're even carried in by corrupt employees. Over the years, inmates have tried hundreds of imaginative ways to get drugs into institutions. And you, the correctional worker, continually develop ways to stop them. But if drugs do get in, despite your best efforts, the next job, of course, is to apprehend those using drugs as soon as possible. Are you good at it? Needless to say, your ability to find drugs is important. But just as important is your ability to identify drug-related behavior. So the purpose of this program is simply to review once again what you should already know about the observable signs of drug abuse. For example, what you notice first is that the inmate's behavior is unusual for that inmate.
It's 8:30 and you're supposed to be here at 7:30? That's a whole hour?
Yep.
You got any good excuses?
This inmate is normally punctual, but today he has a distorted sense of time.
What happened?
Well, the officer down at...
Anyone can forget the time, but as you talk to him, you also notice his eyes are slightly red and bloodshot. Or maybe you notice that the inmate's pupils are dilated much wider than you'd expect in these lighting conditions.
Well, it was for a while, but...
Remember her speech pattern? It sounds confused and fragmented.
I thought you said the kitchen was too hot.
And she seems to be coughing a little, doesn't she? If you're an experienced staff member, you've already guessed marijuana or hashish. As you know, cannabis is the most common drug smuggled into institutions.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm telling you, she had short hair, man. She was ugly. She tried to get with me.
Another indicator is inappropriate laughter, like giggling. With certain serious inmates, giggling would be unusual. But as you know, marijuana does lower inhibitions. Also, since the chemicals in marijuana decrease sugar levels, the body seeks a balance by craving sweets. You might see the inmate has what's called the munchies, a craving for junk food.
Buckwheat.
As you know, marijuana can also cause a person to become preoccupied with insignificant things, like a spot on the ceiling that he never saw before. And of course, if you already know the sweet, musty odor of marijuana, you might have all the clues you need to take action. As with all drugs, one unusual behavior alone might not indicate what you're dealing with. And you probably won't find all the symptoms on the same person. But when you see multiple signs that may include a distorted sense of time or bloodshot eyes,
You got any excuse for why you're late?
But you didn't like all the snivels you were getting.
or coughing,
About the food being bad.
or dilated pupils, or confused speech,
That, you know, it's
Don't feel like the Lone Ranger.
or unusual giggling, or the munchies,
That Columbia's pretty good.
or fixations, or that special odor of cannabis. When you put them together in any combination, you know there is a strong possibility that marijuana is being used. It's worth remembering that though marijuana users don't usually exhibit aggressive behavior, when dosage is very high and they think that perhaps they've been spotted by you, they can have attacks of panic. and become unstable. Obviously, anytime you observe unusual behavior in an inmate, you always want to get a backup before conducting a search or confronting that inmate. Just as important, of course, is to notify your supervisors. They may well know information about this inmate's past health and drug history that you're unaware of.
Yes, sir. Try to inform inmate Johnson he had a visit.
Needless to say, whenever you have to confront an inmate under the influence of any drug, you don't want surprises. Some people categorize marijuana as an hallucinogen, but of course the hallucinogens you're more likely to see are peyote, mescaline, and LSD. The problem with LSD is that it's so easy to smuggle into an institution because only small amounts are needed. For example, in this case, someone put a drop of LSD behind a stamp on a letter they sent to an inmate. By cutting the envelope behind the stamp, the inmate can now easily lick out the LSD. Like all hallucinogens, LSD causes an exaggeration of both the ups and the downs that a person has.
Hey, guy, you all right? You hurt yourself?
What you may first see is that he has become very sad over a very minor incident.
That thing here, I don't know what's wrong here.
What, your shoe?
Or he may be laughing hysterically for no apparent reason.
Let me check it out, okay? Come on up.
Since his perception of what he sees is distorted, if he speaks, you may hear unusual descriptions of reality. For example, he may talk about things like his TV having an aura, or colors blending together, which seems fascinating to him and very, very confusing to you.
Camp quarters number 2, 1019 outside wait area, ASAP. That is kind of messed up, isn't it?
If the dosage was high, you'll see a decrease in muscular coordination, like a fine tremor of the fingers or jerking. And if you look closer, you might see that his face is flushed due to a rise in body temperature.
Hey, man, there's a guy tripping out down there. I think he's on acid. You better check it out.
As you know, because emotions are exaggerated and perceptions are distorted among people using LSD, when a person has an adverse reaction or a bad trip, they can become hysterical.
Look this way, Hawkins.
Whenever there is irrational inmate behavior, you know that you have to be careful. You have to get a backup and notify your supervisor.
What's the problem? Are you all right?
But if you also find out this behavior was caused by LSD, the best approach, of course, is to calmly and quietly reassure the person that he's okay and that he's just on a bad trip that's going to pass very soon.
Relax. Everything's gonna be all right. Can I come in?
Probably the drug we think of most when we think of drug abuse is heroin. And when we think of signs of heroin, we think of needle marks or tracks in the arms. But inmates know that too. So in prisons, most injections are made under the tongue, or in the hands, or under the arms, or behind the legs, or even between the toes. In other words, injection marks are probably not going to be the signs that you see first. What do you see? Since heroin slows a person down, you're most likely to notice that an inmate is moving slower than usual. He doesn't stagger or weave, he glides.
Hey, fella, your room is a mess.
If you talk to him, you'll notice he speaks slower than usual. With feelings of euphoria, his mind may seem somewhere else. If he's just taken an injection, the heroin has stimulated sweating, and his skin could have a moist appearance. And maybe you become aware that he hasn't stopped scratching the whole time you've been talking. What's happening is that heroin affects nerve ends, creating a tingling or itching sensation, especially around the face. When it's bad, You may even see scratch marks.
No, it isn't. I got a long sleeve shirt on. I'm not sweating.
Oh, it's hot in there, dog. Get it right.
As you know, the initial phase of euphoria passes quickly. And if you missed it, what you might see first is an inmate who's gone into a semi-consciousness. She's on the nod. If you see an inmate like this, you may think nothing of it. But if the inmate has taken heroin, you may also see that her mouth must be dry because she keeps licking her lips. They may even be caked white at the corners, like she just came out of the desert. And since the inmate's system is dehydrated, there's a very good chance that you'll find sweets or soft drinks close by. But what will alert you most, of course, are the eyes. They may be squinting too much, or the eyelids may look droopy. But even more important, if a person is under the influence of heroin, the pupils will always be pinpointed.
What are you doing on the floor, Mary?
Not normal or dilated the way they would be with marijuana,
Look at me, Mary.
but contracted, constricted, pinpointed.
You sure you're all right?
All right.
Why don't you look at me?
Obviously, during the day, contracted pupils may not be what you see first.
Hey, David,
But
do me a favor. How about
if
take
you
off
do
your
see
glasses?
slow movement, slow and dreamy talking, scratching,
You want to look at me, guy?
and dry lips, you should have already become suspicious enough to look into those eyes.
Open them up. Open your eyes.
I don't open, Bob.
Open your eyes, Davis.
They're open, Bob.
Of course, if you see that those pupils are constricted, it's time to take action and look for needle marks. Correctional environments are not nice places. They're not meant to be. If you were an inmate, you too would probably want to escape. Since inmates can't get out physically, many try to get out mentally, to close out the world around them through drugs. The drugs of choice, of course, are the central nervous system depressants, primarily alcohol, tranquilizers, and of course barbiturates. Seconal, Nembutal, Quaaludes, Valium, Librium, the list goes on and on. And inmates choose them because they're easy to get, and they do temporarily